Why do we work so hard for a life that feels increasingly hollow? There's a quiet war happening behind our daily routines. It's not fought with bullets or banners, but with beliefs. Two names echo across history as architects of economic thought: Adam Smith, the apostle of free markets, and Karl Marx, the prophet of rupture. But before we decide who understood the system better, we need to ask, what system are we living in, and who does it serve? Imagine waking up every day to a world where choice is an illusion. You scroll through endless ads, pick from brands owned by the same few conglomerates, and chase a freedom that vanishes the moment your rent is due. That's not liberty. That's a glass cage, transparent, elegant, and inescapable. Smith spoke of the invisible hand guiding the market. But Marx warned of another invisible force: ideology. The web of ideas that makes exploitation look like opportunity. We are taught that competition drives progress, that success is merit, that buying more will make us feel less alone. But have you ever asked, who benefits when you believe these things? The truth is, belief itself is a commodity, one that's been carefully engineered to protect the interests of those who own, not those who work. And so we begin this journey not with answers, but with a rupture. The realization that the cage we live in was designed to feel like freedom. Adam Smith envisioned a world where self-interest would create harmony, a marketplace of individuals, freely trading goods and ideas guided by the invisible hand toward mutual benefit. But whose hands were truly invisible? Smith saw the butcher, the brewer, and the baker, small craftsmen trading not out of love, but necessity. He believed that their pursuit of personal gain, paradoxically, would create collective prosperity. It was a comforting vision, one where greed transforms into good and the market becomes a moral force. Yet beneath this poetic logic, there was silence. Silence about power. Silence about who owns the tools, the land, the machines. Smith's dream was born in a world not yet consumed by factories and stock markets. He saw commerce as natural, almost organic, but he could not foresee the monstrous scale it would reach under capitalism. His theory worked when everyone started from the same place. But in reality, we are born into different races on the same track, and some never even get shoes. While Smith imagined a decentralized world of equals, the system evolved into one of concentration. A few corporations now control the flow of wealth, information, and even thought. The invisible hand now chokes. Today, a tech CEO makes more in a minute than a teacher makes in a year. Not because he works harder, but because he owns the network where value circulates. So the question is, did Smith misunderstand human nature? Or did capitalism mutate beyond his control? As we peel back the layers, one thing becomes clear. Smith described a garden. Marx warned us about the factory hidden behind the flowers. What happens when your work becomes your worth? In the theater of capitalism, we are all performers. But behind the curtain, there's a secret no one talks about. The show runs on stolen time. Karl Marx called it surplus value, the profit that emerges not from innovation or efficiency, but from paying you less than the value you create. It's a simple trick, dressed in complex language. You work 8 hours, create 10 hours of value, and the difference is kept by someone else. This is not just economics, it's theft disguised as a paycheck. Marx didn't hate work. He hated what work became under capitalism, a process that alienates us from our creativity, our humanity, even our own bodies. You don't build anymore, you perform. You don't live to grow, you survive to repeat. In Smith's world, labor was a contribution. In Marx's world, labor became a commodity, bought, sold, and exploited. And with it, so was the worker's soul. Picture this: a man assembling shoes he will never afford, a woman packing boxes in silence, a gig worker chasing 5-star ratings just to pay for gas. These are not isolated struggles. They are the blueprint. Every minute you sell is a piece of life that never returns. And the more you give, the more they demand, because your exhaustion is profitable. So ask yourself, when did labor stop being about creation and start being about survival? Maybe the system was never broken. Maybe it was built to break you, gently, quietly, with a smile. What if your freedom is nothing more than a curated illusion? In capitalist society, we're told that freedom means choice, the ability to pick a career, a brand, a lifestyle. But what if every choice has already been pre-approved by the same system that claims to liberate you? You can choose your coffee shop, but not your landlord. You can pick your phone color, but not your cost of living. This is the great paradox. You feel free, while living inside a cage designed to mimic openness. You can scream, but only inside the walls of your job contract. You can dream, but only within what the algorithm shows you. Adam Smith believed in the power of choice, that markets would empower individuals. But Marx warned us of false freedom, where autonomy is nothing more than obedience in disguise. We see this in the rise of the gig economy. The so-called freedom to be your own boss often means no health care, no protection, no rest. Flexibility becomes precarity. Autonomy becomes isolation. The deeper truth? You're only as free as your debt allows. A person drowning in student loans, medical bills, and rising rent is not free. They're a hostage with a smile, chasing freedom through the very system that created their chains. And while you navigate this maze, someone else is watching, profiting from every exhausted step. So let me ask you this. If freedom requires you to trade your health, your time, your sanity, was it ever freedom at all? Or was it just a contract signed in silence, passed down from generation to generation, hidden behind the word choice? Why do we love objects more than people? In capitalist society, things have a strange power. A new phone feels like progress. A luxury car whispers status. A branded shoe becomes a symbol of identity. But behind these polished surfaces lies a hidden cost. Human lives reduced to metrics. Marx called it commodity fetishism, when objects take on a mystical aura and we forget the labor that created them. We don't see the sweat, the sorrow, the sacrifice. We just see the price tag. And so we begin to worship the product, not the person. A factory worker in Bangladesh stitches a shirt for pennies. That shirt is shipped, branded, and sold for 100 times its worth. But who do we remember? The logo, the influencer, never the hands that sewed it. This is the magic trick of capitalism. It hides the story behind the thing. It turns human effort into background noise. Even our emotions are sold back to us, in scented candles, curated playlists, and lifestyle subscriptions. Loneliness becomes a market. Grief becomes an opportunity. Desire becomes data. Adam Smith believed value came from utility and exchange. But Marx saw something deeper. The human labor embedded in every object, now erased by the shine of consumerism. And the more we buy, the more we forget ourselves. We chase meaning through accumulation. We measure self-worth by what we wear, drive, or display. But no matter how much we own, it's never enough. Because the void we're trying to fill isn't material. It's spiritual. So here's the question. Are we owning things? Or are things owning us? Perhaps the real cost of capitalism isn't what we pay, it's what we forget in the process. When did being tired become a badge of honor? In the modern world, exhaustion is glorified. We're told to hustle harder, sleep less, grind more. Productivity has become the new morality, a measure not just of success, but of worth. If you're not constantly producing, you're seen as lazy, disposable, invisible. But who benefits when your burnout is normalized? Marx spoke of this as alienation, a condition where the worker becomes a stranger to his own life. You don't just sell your labor, you sell your time, your energy, your very presence. And in return, you get a wage, just enough to keep you alive for another day of the same. Under Smith's vision, labor was mutual exchange. But in today's reality, labor is self-erasure. The more you give, the less you feel. You don't recognize yourself. You don't feel connected to what you create. You just clock in, deliver, and disappear. Imagine a man typing spreadsheets in a windowless room, or a nurse on her third shift in a week. smiling through fatigue, or a warehouse worker racing against an algorithm. These are not isolated stories. They are the architecture of modern life. And what do we call it? Opportunity, drive, ambition. We have confused movement with meaning. The truth is, a system obsessed with productivity doesn't want you whole. It wants you fragmented, efficient, obedient, tired. Because tired people don't organize. Tired people don't rebel. Tired people consume. So next time you're praised for working through pain, ask yourself, is this resilience or surrender? Perhaps the most radical act today is to reclaim your time, to say, I am not a machine, and mean it. Why do the rich keep getting richer, while the rest of us struggle to breathe? In Adam Smith's world, markets were supposed to regulate themselves. Competition, he believed, would prevent tyranny. But capitalism evolved into something Smith never anticipated, a system where wealth feeds on itself. Marx saw this clearly. He warned that capital doesn't just accumulate, it concentrates. The more you have, the easier it is to extract more. And so, the pyramid sharpens. The top grows smaller and wealthier. The bottom grows larger and more desperate. This isn't failure, this is design. The wealthy don't just own companies. They own laws, media, and narratives. They shape reality, what we value, what we fear, what we aspire to. And through this, they maintain control without bars or chains. You're told to work hard, save, invest. But try buying a house on minimum wage. Try paying for healthcare without debt. Try climbing the ladder when it's missing half its rungs. The myth of mobility hides a brutal truth. The game is rigged. In this world, luck is privatized. Inheritance becomes merit. Privilege disguises itself as discipline, and those who suffer are blamed for not trying harder. This is not just economic inequality. It's moral inequality, where the rich are seen as virtuous and the poor as failures. But ask yourself, if wealth is the result of hard work, why are the hardest working people often the poorest? Maybe it's because the system doesn't reward labor, it rewards ownership. And until we challenge who owns what and why, the machinery of inequality will keep turning, quietly grinding human potential into profit. Who really decides what you think, feel, desire? In the digital age, we like to believe we're more informed, more connected, more free. But behind every swipe, every search, every scroll, there's something darker, a system that studies your mind to sell it back to you. This is no longer just capitalism, it's surveillance capitalism, a structure where your attention is the product and your behavior is the marketplace. Adam Smith never imagined a world like this, a world where the invisible hand would become an algorithm, feeding you content not to enlighten, but to manipulate. Marx, however, warned us. The ruling ideas are nothing more than the ideal expression of the dominant material relationships, and today, those ideas are curated by code, built to serve profit, not truth. You don't choose what you see, the algorithm does. You don't discover your desires, they are designed through ads, influencers, metrics. Your fear becomes engagement, your anger becomes data, your identity becomes a profile. Freedom of thought, or just a menu of illusions tailored to keep you consuming? The platforms you trust to connect you are owned by billionaires. The apps you use to express yourself are optimized for revenue. Even your memories are filtered through sponsored moments and clickbait nostalgia. So we must ask, in a world this controlled, how can we truly know what we believe and what we've been taught to believe? Marx didn't write about Instagram or TikTok, but he saw it coming, a system that doesn't just steal your labor, but colonizes your mind. Perhaps the final frontier of capitalism isn't land or labor, it's your inner life. Why do we believe that success is earned when the starting line is invisible? From childhood, we're taught a simple story. Work hard, stay disciplined, and you'll rise. It's comforting. It tells us the world is fair. It tells us that those at the top deserve to be there. But what if this story is the greatest myth of all? Meritocracy, the belief that talent and effort alone determine success, is not just flawed, it's weaponized. It turns structural inequality into personal failure. It makes you blame yourself for a game you never had a chance to win. Adam Smith valued effort, but he assumed a level playing field. Marx shattered that illusion. He showed us that the economy is not a race, it's a pyramid, and those at the bottom hold the weight of the entire structure, while being told they simply didn't try hard enough. A janitor works 2 jobs, never misses a shift, still can't afford health care. A young graduate drowns in debt, delivering food instead of building a future. Meanwhile, the children of the elite glide forward on invisible privileges, networks, inheritance, security. But we don't see that. We see the winner, and assume he ran faster. This is how the system protects itself, by turning luck into virtue, by turning inequality into merit. And worst of all, it turns solidarity into competition. You begin to see your peers not as allies, but as threats. Their failure becomes your chance, their success, your resentment. So we ask, if everyone starts the race at different points, why do we pretend the finish line is fair? Maybe the real merit is not in climbing the ladder, but in refusing to step on others to get there. What happens when your dreams are manufactured? In a capitalist world, desire is no longer organic. It's designed. Every advertisement, every influencer, every polished image, they don't just sell products, they sell versions of you that don't yet exist. This is the new factory, not one of machines and smoke, but of fantasies and longing. A system where you don't just work to survive, you work to become someone you're told you should be. Adam Smith believed in the pursuit of happiness, but Marx revealed something more unsettling. Under capitalism, happiness becomes a commodity, and like all commodities, it's bought, packaged, and priced beyond your reach. You are encouraged to dream, but only dreams that fuel consumption. A new apartment, not affordable housing. A luxury vacation, not paid time off. A 6-figure job, not a shorter work week. Even your rebellion is monetized. Edgy fashion, ironic memes, curated outrage. And so, desire itself becomes labor. You wake up tired, but you scroll. You feel empty, so you buy. You feel anxious, so you post. Every emotion is harvested. Every insecurity is monetized. You don't chase dreams. You're chased by them. Marx wrote of the phantom-like objectivity of commodities, things that appear magical, detached from the labor that birthed them. Today, the most powerful commodity is aspiration itself. You're sold not just things, but identities. So ask yourself, who benefits when your dream is just another ad campaign? Perhaps the most radical dream now is to want less, to unplug, to breathe, to imagine a life not built around what you can afford, but what you can feel. Who owns your labor? Who owns your life? In every transaction, there is more than just exchange. There is control. And under capitalism, control flows from one place: ownership. Adam Smith saw property as a natural right, but Marx understood property as a weapon, one that divides the world into those who own the means of production and those who must sell themselves to survive. It's not about hard work. It's about who owns the land, the machines, the data, the platforms, the patents, the networks. You can work 60 hours a week and still struggle. But if you own the factory, or the app, or the algorithm, you earn while others exhaust themselves. This is not accidental. It is the core logic of capitalism. Extract from the many, enrich the few. You don't just rent your labor. You rent your attention, your identity, your future, and in return, you get wages, temporary access, limited power, a lease on life, renewed every 2 weeks with a paycheck. Ownership is permanent. Labor is disposable. And the most dangerous illusion? Believing you're free because you can choose which master to serve. This is why inequality persists. This is why wealth compounds. This is why power remains in the hands of those who don't build, don't sweat, don't bleed, but sign contracts, shift numbers, collect dividends. So ask yourself, who profits from your belief in fairness? When the foundation is theft? Perhaps revolution doesn't begin with rage. Perhaps it begins with a simple question: what if we owned what we created? not just our labor, but our lives? What if the system isn't failing, but functioning exactly as intended? We often speak of crises, economic crashes, social unrest, climate collapse, as if they are malfunctions. But what if they are features, not bugs? What if the suffering isn't a mistake, but the fuel? Marx wrote, "Accumulation of wealth at one pole is, at the same time, accumulation of misery at the opposite pole." In simpler words, for one to rise, many must fall. Capitalism doesn't collapse because of greed. It depends on it. It doesn't malfunction when the poor suffer. It expands. Every injustice is monetized. Every collapse, a new market. This is not chaos. This is design. Adam Smith dreamed of a system rooted in human sympathy. But Marx understood, sympathy does not scale when profit is God. And in today's world, profit touches everything, from education to healthcare, from housing to hope. Even your pain becomes data. Even your joy becomes revenue. So we stand here on a trembling planet, working harder, sleeping less, fearing more, and still we are told, this is freedom. But what if real freedom means stepping outside the script? What if the truth is not that we are broken people in a working system, but working people in a broken morality? And what if the future doesn't begin with fixing capitalism, but with leaving it behind? Have you ever wondered why, no matter how hard you try, it still feels like you're drowning? Maybe it's not you. Maybe it's the water you're swimming in. Capitalism was never just an economy. It was always a story, one written by the few for the many to believe, a story that turns struggle into shame, obedience into virtue, and suffering into silence. But now you've seen behind the curtain. You've seen how Adam Smith dreamed of balance, and how Marx exposed the imbalance built into the foundation. You've seen the labor behind the product, the algorithm behind your choices, the lie behind merit. And most of all, you felt it. In your body, your bills, your burnout. So what now? What if real freedom begins with unlearning, with asking forbidden questions, with rejecting the story that says this is the best we can do? Because once you see the system not as broken, but as working against you, something changes. You begin to reclaim your time. You begin to reconnect with others, not as competition, but as comrades. You begin to imagine a world not built on profit, but on purpose. As Marx wrote, the philosophers have only interpreted the world in various ways. The point, however, is to change it. If this video helped you see things differently, even just a little, consider supporting this work through a super thanks. It helps us keep producing content that breaks illusions and builds awareness. And if you're ready to go deeper, to see what they don't want you to see, make sure you're subscribed and watch the next episode. The journey doesn't end here.